really in South Africa, do we have any person in particular?
Okay,
That
Mark,
we can really maybe look at.
thank you very much for that. Basically, what he's asking is, do you see anyone who is reflecting what you're saying here? Are people buying the message that you're sharing?
Oh, yes. I mean, since I've been here, I've been very well received. All the events very well attended. I think there's a lot of people who understand that at this point in our sojourn as African people, the 21st century, we're at a serious crossroads where we can no longer accept neo-colonialism. We can no longer accept neo-imperialism. And I think African people all over the world are just sick and tired of white supremacy. And unfortunately, we don't only have to deal with white supremacy. We also have to deal with such things as East Indian supremacy here in South Africa and America. We have to deal with Mexican supremacy. What
is it when you say deal with? I mean, what does that mean? I mean, I can see, and one or two people are, expressing a level of, what does he mean?
Okay.
Does he mean violence? Does he mean that people of other extractions don't have a place in this country?
I mean, control of the wealth and acquisition to opportunity to build the wealth. One thing that you've had in South Africa, just like we've had in America, you get an influx of another group of people who are put in as a buffer between the white power structure and the black underclass. So here in South Africa, they're bringing in the Chinese, they're bringing in the East Indians. And I see them. I see how they treat our people here. The East Indians treat black people in South Africa as if they're animals. It's the same thing in America with the Mexican
based
population.
on what is that observation?
Well, I can tell you, one of the last times I was here in South Africa, I went to Shaka Zulu's gravesite, and I was going past we went past the casinos in Durban. And so I'm walking down the street, and I'm wondering why all these East Indians are smacking me in the chest, literally smacking me in the chest. And so I'm saying to myself, can they not see who I am? And the brother who I was with say, no. They said, we are expected to get out of their way when they walk. And the reason you keep bumping into them is they're expecting you to walk in the street when they're walking on the sidewalk. But not only that, since I've been here, I've been told by African people during this trip that East Indians will jump in front of lines. They will cut you off. They will talk to you like you're less than human, as if South Africa belongs to them. But again, where did that prerogative come from? It came from the white overclass who brought them in to serve as a buffer group, a second level of oppression against Africans. The same thing is going on in America, where they're using, let me say this, where they're bringing in Latinos and Mexicans in America as a second buffer group to prevent African people from getting an opportunity to rise. They become the new oppression.
But what do you say then? Because there are a couple of things that perhaps I find problematic with that. And the one is that when we create a worldview or a general perspective on something, but yet it's based on a level of, pardon me using the word, a myopia. I mean, it is your own experience. It is perhaps a collective experience of a few people. How does that formulate the narrative or
I agree
the
with
discourse?
you on that. Let's take my personal experience out the way. Let's look at the history between East Indians and African people. They have never been supportive of African people. Even when Mahatma Gandhi was in South Africa advocating the case for East Indians in South Africa, he did nothing to help the Africans here, even when he was requested.
You would see a lot of, and since we're on the issue of Indians, and we call them Indians, we call that, that demographic Indian in South Africa, have been part of the liberation struggle.
Some of them have participated, just like some white people helped to destroy slavery in America. But we cannot excuse the racist behavior of an entire group of people just because a few of them were humane enough to assist the oppressed. Exceptions do not violate the rule. They just show that there can be variations of personality, but they do not violate the rule. East Indians in South Africa are racist, just like Latinos in America are racist, and they're given power to be racist by the white overclass. Can we deny that?
And you would say that it would be based on
your
experience.
History and experience. Show me any history where East Indians as a population have been sympathetic to the needs of African people, not just in South Africa. You have East Indians all across the continent. Where have they been a support for black people?
I'm talking to Dr. Umar Johnson. Engage with him. Bongani in Soweto. Good morning.
Morning, Iman, and His Excellency, Mr. Johnson.
All right.
Iman,
before
I say anything, I want to call for the nationalization of Power FM because this station is the best radio station in this country. The kid in KwaZulu-Natal, Eastern Cape should hear people like you speaking. What I wanted to ask His Excellency, what can South Africans do to solve their problems? Because white supremacy is the biggest fraud of the last 300 years or more of black existence. Because they come here, they treat us as if we are not from here.
All right, Bongani, and I think it's a question that segues with an earlier one, Umar, about what can black people do today?
3 areas of focus. Number 1, we have to discipline our spending habits. You cannot build political power while being weak economically. Even though African people in South Africa may struggle economically to make ends meet, we still have disposable income that we use on cell phones, disposable income that we use on designer clothing, disposable income that we use on entertainment. We have to take that disposable income and we have to concentrate it, which means we have to build black banks. We have to build black credit unions. We have to become our own source of economic empowerment. The state cannot do it. No matter how much President Zuma may want to help the black Africans of this country, it's going to be difficult for him to do that within the context of European power. We have to do it ourselves. So we got to get our money together. If there is no black dollar, there is no black power. Number 2, we have to start holding the black church accountable. We give too much money to the black church not to be getting anything in return. One of my biggest issues with the black church is that they don't hire black people. For you to collect that type of money every week and you don't hire none of our children, you don't hire any of our mothers, you don't hire any of our men, that's not acceptable. The black church has to become an economic empowerment instrument. If it's not going to empower us, then we need to get rid of it. The third thing is the black bourgeoisie. White supremacy maintains and perpetuates itself by creating a class of Negroes, the black bourgeoisie. You have them here, we have them in America, they have them in Canada, in the UK. And this is a group of well-placed black folk whose job is to keep the masses in their place. And we have to be able to expose them for who they are. We don't have to be violent, we don't have to be disrespectful, but there needs to be a council, a tribunal where Africans who have not been loyal to the community are brought in question. Respectfully.
You saw my eyebrows go up.
Yes, ma'am. But we have to do this because it is the bourgeoisie that is the most dangerous aspect that controls the progress of black people.
But why can't people be free to do what they want to do if there is, as you say, the
because
emergence
all
and
change is done by a group. There is no individual change. All change is done by a group. Mandela may have led the fight against apartheid, but it was the masses of unnamed South Africans who brought apartheid to an end, not Mandela. No one man makes history. The people make history. So you cannot be free to do what you want.
Tell me more about this accountability you're saying. You know, that if the black bourgeoisie, as you in the way that you have described it, is not sharing the love, so to speak, or is not loyal to black people, or things that they want to buy, providing services and so on. This tribunal thing. I mean, the one thing people would be very wary of is, people's right to trade with whom they want to, people's right to economically advance in the way that they want to.
We're not disagreeing with that. We're not disagreeing with that.
There doesn't have to be an Ubuntu-ness or a community-ness inbuilt into that.
No, there has to be a community-ness built into it because as African people, we are communal people. We do things as a group. The lowest level of identity for us is the family. There is no such thing
but
as
for people who don't buy into it, it's their right not to.
But it's the community's right and obligation to hold individuals accountable who belong to that community, who are not working in its best interest. You cannot betray the Dutch and get away with it. You cannot betray the British and get away with it. And we have to stop letting disloyal Africans betray us without being exposed.
All right. So if they have to be held accountable,
yes.
How would they be held accountable?
The best way to do that, because one thing we do have to be careful of, and I think I hear this in your message, we just can't go around hurling accusations at people that are baseless. So you have to have a tribunal where people can be brought in and given an opportunity to explain their behavior.
And if their explanation doesn't suffice or doesn't satisfy,
then
what
they
happens?
will be considered a traitor to the people, and they will be excused from the community.
Excused from the... What does that
mean?
We
will not affiliate with that person. You have to make examples to show people we're serious as African people.
But you're not suggesting violence, are you?
No, they don't have to be violent. All you have to do is discommunicate them. This person has been disloyal to African people. We no longer affiliate with them until they prove that they are worthy of membership back into our community.
So every black person, you're saying, has the obligation to serve the community.
Yes.
There's no choice in it.
There is no choice. If you are African and you belong to this family, you will be loyal to it or you will be excommunicated from it. And this is not a fantastic idea. European Jews have the same concept. That's why you don't betray European
All
Jews.
right, let me. People are dying to talk to you. Let's see what they have to say to you on that score. Thabo in Pretoria, and to all of our guests, please keep those comments as crisp as you can, so that we can take as many as possible. Thabo, go ahead. Good morning.
Yeah, morning, and morning to the doctor. Actually, the doctor has stolen my words, but let me just be precise as I can. I wanted to re-emphasize what he just said at the moment, which, you see, the problem with this country and black people elsewhere, we must start investing in institutions rather than embellishments. That's the problem that we have in this country, and it is a problem, again, which I've seen again in America. It was Oprah Winfrey came all the way from the United States, came here, saw that there was a need to build a school. People left school here, and he took money from her own pocket and built a school to provide knowledge. But what we see with black people, all what they do, you find a person buys 7 cars, 8 cars, diamond rings, all these embellishments which are not necessary at all. If we can only build institutions in this country, industries in this country to employ our own, we would not have a problem. But unfortunately, black people, we invest in wrong things. All right. Okay, bye.
All right, Thabo. Lorika says, I don't like what I'm hearing. Are black people being taught to sponge off other people's hard work in terms of the black bourgeoisie? That's one of the comments there. Let's go to Solly in Rustenburg. Solly, good morning.
How are you, Iman?
Good, and you?
Yeah, I must say I'm impressed. I just want to ask the doctor, what is his view in terms of evolution? That clearly states that a black person is inferior to the white.
Evolution doesn't state that, from what I understand. My reading of evolution,
No,
Solly.
it comes, look at where we come from. It's an ape, okay, just because of time. It's an ape, it's black person, then the real person is white.
All right, I'll get
how you interpret it.
All right, I'll get Dr. Johnson's thoughts on that. Let's go to, thank you for the call. Let's go to Thabo in Atteridgeville. Good morning. Hi, Thabo, go ahead. Okay, Thabo's got the radio on. Pule in Alex. Good morning.
Hi, Iman. How are you?
Well, thanks, and you?
I'm well. Iman, I think I've just found a very interesting mentor. I've never knew of the doctor, but I'm very impressed with him. I also like to make an example which alludes to exactly what he says should be the solution to empowering black people. I'm sure you would be familiar with Scientology and its systems, whether it works or it doesn't work. But it's a group of people with a certain intention. And they also have principles and systems. I think it was last year where we saw a lawsuit by one of the big heavyweights in South Africa suing the church for certain things, and the church itself disavowing that individual from its community. So I'm in support of the doctor saying that we need to form communities of black power, to which we need to name individuals who are for black power and their methods and systems and symbology, and also name and shame, and also make those name and shame into an example for our generations to come, saying, you see that black person, do not follow that black person because that's a white person in a black, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm in full support of the doctor. I say, Viva Doctor, we are in support of you. My only challenge is, I would love to see this happen. I don't see people around who can do it, and that's a shame.
All right, that would be the challenge then, Pule and Alex, to the rest of the community. But we were talking just offline before we went on air in one of the breaks, Dr. Johnson, about the right to self-determination, that people have the right to do whatever they want to do as humans. They shouldn't be dictated to by the demands of the collective. They shouldn't be dictated to by society. They should develop themselves in every way as they see themselves, or as in a future that they define for themselves. And what you're suggesting leans a lot on collectivism, on censure, on the role of the community. And while there are positives to that, because everyone benefits, the community rises as a whole. But when it comes down to being dictatorial about how people behave, don't you think that is problematic? And
Yes,
that takes
ma'am.
away that fundamental human right to self-determinate in your way.
Yes, I agree with you, but I don't think we should be dictatorial. Okay, African people, we function on consensus. We come together and we determine as a collective what we think is in the best interest of African people, not Dr. Umar Johnson. That's Eurocentric. Okay, we are horizontal people. We're not vertical as the European is. So we will not be dictating to anyone. But then the other question would have to be asked, isn't that what government do? You have a government in South Africa. They determine how you're going to behave. They determine how you're going to think. They're going to determine what you can do and cannot do. They're going to determine how much taxes you're going to pay. So to say that the community cannot impose upon his own certain bylaws of behavior and action, why can that not be possible when governments do it every day?
Yeah, those governments do it with the blessing of the people that vote them into power.
And that's the same way the community will behave, with the blessing of the people who live therein.
Just two things, because we're running out of time, and I want to take more calls. There's a range of tweets as well, but two things: black feminism and gays and gay and lesbian rights. You know, I was just reading a quote of where you were quoted as saying or referring to feminists as man haters. I couldn't find the exact statement around the homophobic or the gay rights statements, but these are two issues, and some of our listeners have also raised that, wanting to know, well, what is your stance on black feminism? Are black feminists okay? Do they get a tick in your book? Are you homophobic?
Okay. First of all, phobia is a fear. And homophobia, I'm a psychologist. Homophobia is not listed in the DSM or the International Classification of Disease.
Let's not go into the semantics. Into the commonly accepted way of... I will.
Hear me.
All right.
I'm saying that because where does the word homophobia comes from? It's not a clinical term. It was created to castigate anyone who still believes in traditional African family structure. Listen, if an African brother is homosexual, he's still my brother. I still love him as a brother. Is a sister is lesbian or bisexual, she's still my sister. I still love her as a sister. But for African people, as a Pan-Africanist, as a Garveyite, I must ask myself, in the long term, is this form of behavior conducive to where African people need to go?
But if it's not a choice behavior, if it is a human,
it's not a choice
natural
according to who?
behavior.
Because the narrative is that people are born homosexual or lesbian. That's the narrative.
But no, it's not the narrative.
No, it is the narrative.
Hold on, let me explain, Dr. Johnson, what I mean when I say that it's not the narrative. What I mean is that it is the experience. People will tell you, I am this way. You can psychoanalyze me all you want. I will continue to...
And there's people who will tell you that they were born to be murderers. There are people who will tell you...
Are you putting them in the same category?
No, what I'm saying is just because someone tells you that they were born something does not make it true. There's no conclusive scientific proof. Now I'm dealing with research.
But is there scientific proof for...
Can I make my statement?
Go ahead.
There's no scientific proof anywhere in the world that shows people are born this way. There is suggestions of evidence haven't been found. There's no proof. That's all I'm saying.
So what, in your view, as a doctor...
Not in my view, in my experience.
I'm asking a question. I'm saying, in your view, as a doctor and a psychologist...
Yes.
What accounts for people
I will tell
who are
you.
homosexual?
I will tell you. For African people, I cannot speak for others. Why? Because behavior is culturally determined. I cannot tell what white folk should or should not be doing. I don't belong to that reality. But for us as a people, there's almost no history of homosexuality in pre-civilization Africa. You cannot find it in Nile Valley.
What kind of evidence would there be? What kind of evidence would make you believe
it should be discussed? It should have been.
But I'm asking you the question. You're saying there's no evidence.
There's no evidence of homosexuality in Nile Valley culture here on African
And what
continent.
would be the proof of that?
The proof is there is no conversation, no literature. We come from a people who wrote everything. There's no evidence of it. Now, it's amazing how you'll tell me to find evidence of there not having been homosexuality in pre-antiquity Africa, but you can't find me evidence of people having been born gay. So you're using a double standard.
No, I'm not using a double standard. For me, it's not a question. To me, if somebody comes to me, it is their human right to express and to live and to be as they want to be.
Without, and I can't control their behavior. I'm not trying to control their behavior.
Without being dismissed, Dr. Johnson, as having been programmed in a certain way or taking on Eurocentric behaviors.
But that's your opinion. That's your opinion. Here, let me go back to what I said.
It's not my opinion.
It's your opinion. It's your opinion.
Let me explain why it's not my opinion. It's not my opinion because too often we see whole communities of people who are vilified, who are marginalized, who are ostracized because of this same mentality.
No, I
that this
think
is
a
learned
lesbian or a
behavior
homosexual has
it's
no,
choice.
no. I believe they have a right to live. They have a right to go to school, to work. Yes,
and
they're
to love
humans.
who they want to love
And I can't,
in the way that they want to love.
Listen to me. There's not enough black men in South Africa right now for black women to get married to because of the war against black men.
What if black women don't want to get married?
Oh, so you're trying to tell me most sisters in South Africa don't desire a husband? Really? That's been a basic human desire since the beginning of time.
I can't say most.
Okay.
I can't say most in the same way that you can't, because you haven't polled every black sister in South Africa.
I don't have to poll them, but I do know that African people have been on the earth for 2 million years, and as long as we have been here, we have been getting married. I do know that.
I'm going to let you have the last word because you are my guest.
No, but hear
but
me
the
out.
conversation is by no means over. Dr.
No,
Umar
it's not.
Johnson,
Let's finish
thank you
it.
very much for talking to us today. It is 12 o'clock. Jeremy Maggs is standing by in the safety of the wall of the studio.